from. So this class is about medical microbiology and therefore about the microbes. So the main categories that we'll be talking about: bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, prions, helminths, which are little worms, and arthropods or insects, which are mainly aren't pathogens themselves, but they are vectors, so they deliver the pathogens to us. We will not do a lot on viruses because I teach a separate virology course. So if you really love viruses, you may do that for a group presentation, or come back next spring and take virology with me. Bacteria, hopefully you will remember, are prokaryotes. The rest of the guys down here, fungi, these parasites, protozoa, the helminths, those are all eukaryotes. And then there's this crazy infectious protein called a prion that we'll talk a little bit about next week, that can cause disease. We will talk about transmission. So how do these pathogens move from person to person, sometimes animal to person, where they hang out in the environment. And by understanding transmission, we can understand ways to prevent transmission. The other important component about understanding transmission is looking at epidemiology and how diseases spread, and maybe why they spread, and studying what we can do about that. Just kind of taking a quick look at my notes. We will talk a little bit about immunology, so how you as a host respond to these different types of pathogens. I will tell you, my field is not immunology, so we're going to keep it pretty basic, but you really need to understand some of these terms in order to understand the primary literature and the type of research that's happening in medical microbiology. We will talk about vaccines, antivirals, antibiotics, which are antibacterials. Also, you're going to notice when you go to do your group presentation, you're going to hit all of these different components when you talk about the pathogen that you pick or that you're assigned. My early research was with poliovirus, and we were trying to manipulate the polio vaccine to use it as a dual vaccine to prevent another infection. We were actually putting genes for HIV into the polio genome, hoping to give you a double immunity against polio and HIV. Obviously, that didn't work. We still struggle with HIV worldwide, but I'm really interested in vaccines and how they work and how they're developed. So we'll talk about that this semester. We'll also talk about how the pathogens survive. So why can't we eradicate them? Why can't we just take a pill and get rid of them? They've got some really fascinating strategies to trick our body into allowing them to flourish. And they've got some cool transmission strategies so they can get from host to host. So we'll talk about that also. Again, the second part of the class is reading primary literature. Writing papers in the biological sciences is an optional book or reference. We suggest people purchasing it as early as GB1, but so you may have this, you may have an earlier edition, that's totally fine. It has some really good references about how to write scientifically, how to make PowerPoint presentations. It's a really good reference. Remember, this class is heavy in writing and heavy in discussion, so you're going to need those communication skills to earn a good grade in this class. Some of the reasons that it's important to study medical microbiology is climate change. And what we're learning now is that as our Earth is warming up, things like mosquitoes are finding or are having increased habitat. So mosquitoes don't like it where it's cold, and as our climate gets warmer, they're actually being able to move into areas that they used to not be able to inhabit. So we've heard of Zika virus. If you come take virology, we will talk about Nipah virus. We're going to talk about, let me make sure, dengue virus in this class, and how some of these vector transmitted diseases are spreading further and further across the world due to things like climate change. Something else that could be interesting about medical microbiology is bioterrorism. People are looking at how they can manipulate these genomes and the potential for causing destruction of human lives, livestock lives, agricultural lives through bioterrorism is a realistic threat. This image over here represents zoonosis. So zoonosis is where a pathogen travels from a animal reservoir to humans. This is where some of the emerging diseases seem to come from. As we destroy habitats, as we come in contact with different species, there's a chance for pathogens to jump species and cause a lot of havoc in the human population. Drug resistance is a huge issue. We will talk about that this semester. The MMWR is a nice resource that tells you weekly how many cases of chlamydia have been reported in Colorado. You know, really fun facts you want to look at. But this is another source to help you put some numbers, some quantitative and up-to-date numbers on pathogens.